Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is another episode of the Framing the Issue pod. I'm one of your co-hosts here, Aaron Kersey, and I'm with Morgan Smith. And we have a really fun episode for you today. So we've made our way through, shipping, tariffs. Last week, we talked about the trades and basically how everything is coming together on the site, whether it be materials or the people that you have on them. Well, this week we have sticks and bricks, and we have two building managers with us to be able to take us through what it looks like when things really start to come together and that puzzle is really starting to form its shape. So I'll introduce our first guest. Tom Crawford of Eastwood Homes. He is their building manager, and he's been with the company for 10 years in October. He actually got his start back with his dad, who he started back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. This is what we discussed a little bit before the show. But Tom, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit more, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, sure. So again, my name's Tom with Eastwood Homes. Like Aaron was alluding to, family's kind of in construction in the home building industry. My dad was working at Eastwood for a while, went into the Coast Guard right out of high school. And then shortly after getting out of the military, kind of bounced around a little bit trying to find my fit. And once my dad moved down to the beach, it opened up an opportunity for me to go to Eastwood. And so that's where I landed.
Very, very nice. And Morgan, do you want to introduce our second guest?
Yeah.
I heard y'all might work together. Is that true?
Know her. Okay. No, I have the honor of introducing our next guest. It is Jodi Brickley. She is the general manager for the Charlotte Residential Andrew Roby office. She's been at AR since 2018, and she's quite an asset. So we're very happy to have her on the podcast with us. So if you want to introduce yourself a little more.
Thank you. That was lovely. So Jodi Brickley with Andrew Roby. I've been with the company, like Morgan said, eight years. I started at the bottom. I started coordinating and scheduling handyman guys, moved on to GM for the handyman small projects team, was the director of project management, and now I am stepping into my father's feet as well and working in construction. So I come from my fourth generation builder and from North Dakota, but got into construction. I liked project management. I liked the process and the planning of everything, and happy to still consider it home.
See, when we have guests that their family was in the industry before them, I always like to ask, was that something that you guys took upon yourselves, or were you kind of like molded into it, like you're going to take over for me kind of thing?
You go right ahead.
It was actually the opposite for me. So, like everybody in my family who's been in construction always said to do something different, but it is definitely what felt most natural for me. I tried a couple of different things, worked some really cool jobs, but like this is definitely the most gratifying thing I've done, in my life so far. And they kind of tried to steer me the opposite way originally, but it is what feels most natural. So
that's awesome. Yeah. What about you?
Yes, construction is punishing. So I would use that similar tactic as, you watch the late nights, a sole proprietor that goes to work and has to make sure the subs show up and the quality is there. And then at the end of the day, still has to go home and do payroll and pay the subs and then look for the next job, right? That's a tough thing with family and all of those things. So growing up, learning that, and I've seen it through my father's eyes, it was the last place I ever thought I would end up. But again, fulfilling the prophecy of, in construction, but
absolutely,
it's very rewarding.
Absolutely. Well, let's break down what you guys actually do on the day to day. I mean, this is an interview. I can't speak today. An interview, right? And so it's always, what does your day to day look like? But Tom, I'll start with you, but Jodi would love to get your input as well. So when you get onto a site and you're managing that site, and your plainest English, what does that mean?
Well, let's paint the picture here, because we got to divide this up. So we have our guest here. We have one that's a production build, so we can get the perspective of both. So we have production build, which is all those neighborhoods you see going out there. That's many, many houses, hundreds of houses. This is what Tom sticks with. Yeah. And then Jodi does more of the custom homes, renovations, deals with the owners directly kind of thing. So just for a little backstory for everyone, that is the two viewpoints that we will be hearing about.
Right. Yeah. So, as a builder, we call our superintendents builders at Eastwood. So, as a builder, getting on the job site. Typically, most guys are getting there girls are getting there early. Yep. But are getting there early, walking the jobs prior to the trade showing up, inspectors showing up and all those things, and getting their day kind of organized in what happened, the day prior or the week prior, in preparation of all that stuff. Once you go through and unlock all your homes, from that point, you're normally going through and checking inspection results. Hopefully by that point, the inspectors are showing up so you can kind of walk jobs with them, make sure everything is going good with that. And then we try to encourage everybody to schedule their homeowner meetings at set times throughout the week. So if you've got homeowner meetings scheduled for that day, you would do those. Update online scheduling, purchase orders, stuff like that needs to be done. And then back out to meeting with trades on site to, discuss any kind of problems that there may be, or looking at any kind of, corrections that need to be made, doing frame checks and foundation checks, stuff like that. And then typically wrapping up the day by really planning for the next day. So, scheduling your inspections for the following day or the following week, checking your schedules again, make sure that everything that should have happened that day, and adjusting or notifying anybody of any changes for the following day.
All right.
That's a pretty typical day.
All right. And what about you, Jodi?
That was very sexy for a type A planner. That sounds exciting. Very different on the custom residential side. Obviously, in new construction, you have a little bit more controls on, but the vast majority of the work that we do is renovations and additions. So you're dealing with sometimes sheer chaos on the day-to-day aspect. Obviously, our superintendents, so we call them executive superintendents on our building side, the boots on the ground, quality construction, making sure the subcontractors show up, homeowners, if they're living at the home, we obviously are respectful of their time. We make sure that they can get up and get their day started if they have kids. So we might start a little bit later if the homeowner's there. If they're not and they've moved on to a VRBO down the street, then we're making sure that the site's protected, it's clean, they're free from debris or anything from the night before. Again, planning the day, obviously, hopefully we've done a good job of letting our subs know that they're going to be on site, what time are they going to be, but kind of setting and planning your day. But really it is day by day, project by project difference of what's going on. But it's a whole chaos.
It's probably it's probably one of the things I find most attractive about this industry is that there's not a typical day.
Correct.
Every day is different, and that fits my personality.
Yeah. So let's break it down, because we have talked about buying the land, looking for the land, and then doing the whole zoning, the permitting, all of that. Mm-hmm. So with you guys coming in, and I know that you're more custom homeowner kind of deal, so it's going to be completely different answers. But for you, for the production build, when do you get brought into it? Whenever they're clearing, grading, all of that, are you already involved when they're grading, getting the civil done, or? Yeah,
so sort of. As a builder or superintendent, not really. In my current position as a home building manager, yes, to an extent. You'll have meetings with land development and the engineers and stuff to make sure that they're kind of aligning with us as well. But typically, no. You're going to be kind of brought in after the site's graded and ready for vertical construction to happen. For the most part, at least, yeah.
Cool. And I'm glad you bring up vertical construction. For someone who's never been on a job site like myself, or, I would say probably a couple of our listeners at least, what is vertical construction to both of you? We can start with you, Jodi.
Just ground up, right? So obviously we're in North Carolina, very few basements here, but it's essentially just ground up construction, stick build, foundation, whether it's a slab or a crawl space, but then just like you said, just vertical construction. Very, very, very self-descriptive.
Yeah. I don't know that I could answer it any better than that. So, from the lot being ready to handing the keys to the homeowner, that's the vertical construction aspect of it.
And so my question is, when you look at vertical construction, everything from, the lot to getting the keys handed to you, right? You could see something and say a home is $300,000. $300,000 would be a steal, but a home would be $300,000. Now, where does that money actually go? If you could break that down for us, that would be fantastic.
I'm sure our answers are going to be drastically different being, in the custom side versus the production side, but $300,000 kind of goes everywhere, but to us at $300,000, to be honest. I mean, at this point, really. But, a vast majority of that's going to your lot cost. I mean, your lot costs are really is what driving the cost of your home. And so the lot cost side of it, the infrastructure side of it, a good portion of it's going to that. After that, obviously the material costs, which right now everybody is aware, like materials are, prices are being raised. So you're facing a lot of that, and a good portion of it's going to that, and then labor as well. And then of course, general overhead. But I think the biggest misconception in the market right now is that like builders are just out there making millions and millions of dollars, and that's just not the case, right? I mean, if it was, you'd have more people doing it, and it's not reality. I think that's what general public thinks. I think people look at it and like, well, that's just $5,000. Why can't you guys do that as a company? Well, that $5,000 adds up, and so. I think overall of a $300,000, if that was the number you were saying, very small portion of that would be of any profit to the company. It's really into the cost.
Well, it's kind of the whole point where we're here, right? Yeah. What you brought up is, and that's why we've created this podcast, talk about is the cost of a home and explain to people that builders aren't making millions out here just off of a single neighborhood.
Right.
And we're trying to explain and break it down and say, hey, well, this is what cost. And here's the things that we can do to help fix the cost to make it a little bit more affordable. Because everyone always talks about affordability in a home. Well, let's explain what's happening and where this cost is going, especially in because we're, like you said, a lot of the cost is in the lot. But with you guys, like you truly see it where that cost is going because you're the one building it. You're the one doing it.
Yeah.
So we got to explain like, hey, this is why it costs so much to build a home and why it's, it's so much.
I mean, we are a for-profit company, obviously, right? So like, just like any other company, like as cost goes up, so does our price point, because, we need to make money just like any other company in the market does. And so, a lot of that's driven really by, cost of land, and development cost is what drives the sale price ultimately.
And I imagine it's different for you though, because it's the homeowners already have the home most of the time. Like, so where does the cost go for you?
Correct. So I'll do percentages, right? So if you're thinking 70% of your cost as a builder is out the door, because we're not just a builder, we're a team of builders, right? We have subcontractors that are coming in there that are the experts that are really going to drive the quality of the roof, the tile, all of those things. So if you're doing materials and subcontractor costs out the door, it's 70% of whatever your price point is. You maybe have 10% if you're lucky as a home builder making that profit. That's a very overhead profit. All of
generous.
That's generous. You're covering the cost back at your rent, your insurance costs, all of that, and then you have the additional costs maybe of like. Definitely the insurance for the builder's risk, all of those regulatory, all of those other aspects that you don't see within your building. So, out the door from a homeowner or a builder, it's 70% out the door right there at the beginning.
So, I mean, you talked about labor costs. So they keep climbing. And so we talked about this a little bit before. So why is it so hard to find good tradespeople? And then, it's also super expensive.
I'm not going to age myself, but where I grew up, you went to school, right? You went to a 4-year degree, or you went to the military. Maybe you did go into trade, but you have generations of people that were told to go get a 4-year degree, be a doctor, be a lawyer, right? All of those wonderful things. And it's a great career, but you missed a whole chunk of folks, generally men, if we're going to be honest, that have skipped that trades and not gone into MEPs, not gone into carpentry. And it's how easy it is to go there today to find someone with 20 years of carpentry experience. You're not going to find that. You're not going to create that. It's going to take years and years of working with your family or business or trades after school. But we have a giant hole of trades that we are going to be really hurting for in the next few years to replace those folks. I think the average construction worker is 45 years old, male. They're retiring shortly. And there's no one the backlog to fill those gaps.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot in our last episode. We talked about the trades specifically, and they mentioned the same thing, that there was so many people that went to get 4-year degrees instead of going into the trades. And but now there's a lot of people who did get those 4-year degrees, and including myself, because I did it too, who did the 4-year degree and then turned around and was like, actually, I want to go, I see trades being a better route. And I did it myself. I mean, criminal justice was my degree, and then I became an electrician, and now I'm here as a project manager. So I get it. But I see that. And we talked about that. And we talked about how good superintendents, they are aging up, and, they're in their 60s, they're 55, 60, and they're about to leave. And we don't have any decent superintendents behind that.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. I mean, in high schools, used to teach skilled trades, and they don't really do that anymore. Very few and far between. So I think it really starts there. And then, in addition to that, it's people look at it because of the cost of living right now is high. They think that they have to go to college to be able to afford to live. Whereas, there's electricians and HVAC people, plumbers out there making, double what somebody who has a 4-year degree has. So I think it's just a mindset thing that really needs to change.
But that turns back into the cost. The cost, a majority of where your cost is going is into these valued tradespeople right now, because there is few and far in between. They know that they can charge a little bit more. Yeah.
They can. I think in particular, Charlotte was so, isolated for, if you want to go pre-COVID, so 2019 to date, and we had the competition is there. So you have our trades now that know that they can go to Asheville, they can go to Greenville, which is exploding, they go to Cashers, they can go to Raleigh, Nashville, all of those locations, and demand the pricing that they're getting and their value, because there's so few to do it. So Charlotte's going to still feel that squeeze. The demand is there, but the subcontractors are just too few.
So one little thing to help fix the affordability of a house: go into the trades.
Yeah, for sure.
We need more tradespeople.
Yeah. Absolutely.
100%.
Yep. And so, we're talking about that variable cost of labor, right? It's kind of changing. It's not what it once was, but I think kind of goes back to our episode with Charles too, is getting back into the materials, right? You guys overlook the material that goes into it. You guys actually get to see and plan, if we want to buy lumber, let's go and buy lumber. If we need to go buy concrete, let's go buy concrete. But with so many changes coming during COVID, how do you even plan for something like that now?
Yeah, I mean, during COVID, you couldn't really plan for it. I mean, that was a never-ending change for, 3 or 4 years, where it was every day was a just complete new thing. Now, I mean, things have leveled out to an extent. I mean, obviously prices still increasing, but the fluctuation not as drastic as what it was during COVID. So, I mean, keeping your thumb on the pulse of the market and material costs, having good relationships with your suppliers and vendors who can kind of give you that idea of, hey, this is coming. Right now it seems like a lot of costs going on mainly because of fuel costs being up and stuff like that. So, a lot of that shipping and of materials has gone up. So you can kind of sort of predict some of that right now, whereas during COVID, you definitely couldn't. I mean, it was you'd get a phone call tomorrow that something increased 30%, and you're like, how are we going to make this work, right? But now it's a little bit more predictable, but definitely still something that you got to keep your thumb on the pulse of it and keep it under control and regulate.
Yeah. I mean, as far as none of us are lawyers, but you work it into your contract as well, right? You speak to it. Your subcontractors will put a 30-day quote on it and say, hey, at 30 days, if you haven't signed it, the price may change. Our vendors, like you said, are great that let us know that things are coming and prices are changed. But it's also how you structure how you're estimating, right? You can do a fixed fee construction, so it's got cost to build. But some of those fluctuating material costs, if they're not selected, you literally put it as an allowance. So the pass-through cost kind of comes to your client, because ultimately, if we didn't pass that cost on, you'd have no builders in business right now. So be strategic about it.
And I think something that I've heard about here is a cost overrun, and sometimes those happening, right? Do y'all have any real instances of a cost overrun happening, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the custom side, probably much different than on the production side. Like for us, we obviously try to get ahead of all of that, if possible, but you'll still run into the occasional lot that, maybe the soil tests bad or you hit rock or something like that. And so trying to plan for a contingency with that throughout the community to spread that cost out throughout the community, have a little bit of a contingency pot, if you want to call it, for those things that, although you try to do everything you can to avoid that, at some point you're going to hit something that is going to cause, you to kind of dip into that contingency part of it.
That follows up Morgan on one of the other episodes we had. She mentioned the same thing about, we asked a similar question and she said the same thing. Rock is like a nightmare. That's your worst enemy. And
I mean, like Union County is very well known for having a ton of rock, right? And so, same in parts of Cabarrus. So like different areas that you're in, I mean, you kind of have an idea if it's going to be a problem or not be a problem, but you don't really know until you're invested in it.
Yeah. And I got to ask, was there a lot of rock in North Dakota or?
No, it's all flat, all flat.
Good. Well, once you have those materials and you have your site ready to go and whatnot, we talked a little bit earlier in the series about zoning regulations and where to put those materials and that labor and whatnot. So are there any like local regulations or zoning rules that consistently drive up the cost for you guys? And are there any that most folks wouldn't expect if they're on the buyer's end?
I think we could fill our next 4 hours of podcast talking about this.
Honestly.
Really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a ton. There is a ton of regulations and zoning requirements that municipalities, put onto builders that just is a direct cost to the buyer. So, I mean, whether it be, masonry requirements, where they'll require a certain amount of stone or brick on a foundation or on the front of a house, or foundation types. There's even municipalities that will like dictate the landscaping packages or, type of grass you need to plant and stuff like that. And, some part of me understands where it's coming from because they're trying to develop a sense of community and like have a vision for, within their municipality. But, that is all direct cost to the end user, so by requiring, full brick fronts or, 3-sided brick or any of that, I mean, that's all direct cost that, the end user is the one who's paying for that.
you probably run into that a lot in the historic district.
Yeah, we actually have two projects down the street from where you guys are taping right now that is, has to go through all sorts of HDC and all these boards of just approving what's going on in the interior of someone's home. So there's a lot of hands and decisions that are made before you were even contracted. I would say, to your point as well, we have to identify native trees on a yard, even if we're not touching the part of the yard. So we've become having to have landscape architects and those folks to kind of help us where, 2-3 years ago, that wasn't the case. And there's a cost to that, obviously, but the real cost is the longevity and the timeline and the rework and all of that. So, a project it used to take a month maybe to get a permit. It's now taking 3 months to get a permit. And then that inspection process is arduous, to say the least. So it's fun.
Seems like these fees have a lot of impact, which leads me into my next question. What's an impact fee? And, who pays them?
Impact fee is kind of exactly how it sounds. It's really a municipality's way of trying to cover costs that they may have. Which, to some extent could be a thing, obviously impact on schools and sewer and water and all of that. And that certainly does have a place. But there's also municipalities that try to use the impact fee as a way of discouraging builders from being in their market. So, you'll see some that have super high impact fees, and that's, kind of a telltale sign that they're really not builder friendly in that environment. But with that being said, if the market is strong there and people want to live there, the builder is going to pay the impact fee to build there, and that cost again is going to the end user, right? So if you're going to have a $20,000 impact fee, the price of that house just went up $20,000. I mean, it's just that simple.
Yeah, same. I don't see a lot of it in Charlotte. We see it a little bit in South Carolina. I see it where I'm from. It's called specials, and it's a $30,000 fee for you to tie into the sewer, which happens here. But they've actually moved that cost to the mortgage, and that stays with the house. So if you buy the home in 2 years, you sell it, that impact fee or the specials stay with that house. So the new homeowners incur those fees. So I've seen really creative ways of passing that cost on, but it can get a little tough.
Yeah.
Man, the cost of a house is like most of the cost that we've heard, honestly, it doesn't even have to do with the actual build of the house. It's not the selections. It's the zoning, the site, the civil of it, the permitting, inspections. That's where I see most of the cost being. And that's probably some things that we could change, or at least try to change, talk to your legislators, things like that to get things passed. So,
the biggest thing on that, like with, municipality oversight and stuff, the biggest thing with that is really just time. Like, I think that time is the easiest way to fix a lot of cost in the sense that, it should not take as long as it takes for a municipality to approve a project or to issue permits. And all of that time spent in limbo waiting on that decision, or the multiple rounds of revisions that a municipality has, and they want you to change this or change that. All of that time is direct cost to the end user, right? Like, again, that affects what your land cost is, which is going to affect the price of your home. So I think like one of the best and easiest ways of fixing it is just decreasing the amount of time a municipality spends in working on projects and approving projects.
My accounting professor in in college can be real excited that we're talking about TVM, time value of money.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I like to do in my job is I manage a lot of relationships going on at once, and I feel like with you guys, y'all are doing the same thing, right? So, what does your relationship look like with the client and with the subcontractors? And if anything ever goes sideways, how do y'all deal with that?
Oh, this is going to be interesting because there's two different point of views.
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. We always say it's a relationship. It's a marriage, right? If we're not working together harmoniously, it's going to be a painful experience for everyone. So we obviously want to be very upfront and honest with our clients about the experience that they're going to have. We always ask them, have they ever built before? Have they ever renovated? That's the very first question we ask, because if they don't, then you kind of have to educate them. Like, this is what it looks like. You're going to be mad at us. We're going to make a mistake. There's going to be weather. There's all these things that are going to happen. It's not linear. It is not easy, and there's going to be mistakes, and, work with us. We'll communicate. As long as we build that trust and continue that trust, it usually works out really well. Now you have the one-offs where it doesn't go well. The subcontractor, maybe the relationship doesn't work, that you just have to be, just strangle everyone and make sure that we're all on the same page, get everyone roped back together, and just kind of plow through, honestly. But there's going to be one-offs, and there always is, and just asking for grace to work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I find probably most attractive to working for Eastwood Homes is that they really, really pride themselves in customer service. Like, we do a ton of training. We do a ton of, role plays with our builders and salespeople. And we spend a lot of time really trying to hone in on that, because that is really, really important as a builder. With subcontractors, it's the same way, having that open line of communication, being able to, every day is going to be a problem where you're going to run into a problem. It's just how you work through those problems. And so, having that foundation of, expectations, both between, the builder, the buyer, the, vendor, supplier, having that foundation of expectations, and then just having that open line of communication between everybody, I think is really what helps to manage that best.
Awesome.
So talk about challenges. I mean, problems that you have, you're going to run into problems no matter what. What is one challenge that you guys have experienced that no matter how much experience you get, that it just keeps you up at night? It's one challenge.
That's a tough one. I'll say like early on starting in this industry, like I was definitely more apt to like bring home those problems and like think about those things at night. But I've sort of learned how to keep that separate, and so like whenever pulling the driveway, it's no longer work and it's home time. Right. And so as far as like keeping me up at night, I think a general challenge that everybody in this industry faces is just meeting the expectations and timelines of, somebody moving into a new home. So, that person moving into a new home is somebody who's planned moving. They've, paid for movers already. They've either sold their, old home and are renting or moving in a very short period of time. And so just like the worry of disrupting all of that to a customer. And for anybody who has moved, they know how stressful that is. Whereas, people who have never moved before, they don't really know what to expect and how stressful that's going to be. And so like kind of setting that expectation with the buyer at that point too, and saying like, hey, this is going to be a very stressful time moving itself. So let us handle the stressful side of building the house and you just worry about the moving side. But yeah, I mean, probably like just making sure that we meet our deadlines and timelines for that customer is probably the, one thing that you can't help but to think about at night.
Wow, Eastwood has really drilled in customer service to you.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, I mean, I in all honesty, it's why I've stayed where I am.
No, it's awesome.
Like it really started from the ownership at our company.
Yeah. And Eastwood's, they're an amazing company.
Yeah.
I love them. Yeah.
You have to teach me your tricks because a lot of clients live rent free in my head daily. There's a lot of, I would say, as folks that are not from Charlotte coming in from other areas, have other expectations or perhaps have some baggage from builders or experiences that they've had in a past build that they can kind of micromanage our teams, and that can be really tough. And those are tough for both our team and the folks that we work with that come on a day-to-day basis that like you go home and have families and like want to enjoy their time, and trying to mitigate that by being the buffer, honestly, is kind of really my role as I manage people. Mm-hmm. So I take a lot of punches, which is fine because I can take it. But I have a lot. I won't tell stories, but I have a lot that live rent free in my head.
Well, and it's different because, and not to make one lesser than the other, but you guys are production, so it's a little easier to be able to go home and be like, all right, that's done for the day. Well, if you have someone living in the house that you're working on, like you have to be available 24/7 just in case an emergency does happen. Yeah. Like something happens with their water or whatever, they're going to call you first.
Yeah. So, for sure. And I mean, it also depends on, what kind of buyers you're dealing with, right? Like you get into that higher end custom, people are paying a tremendous amount of money. Mm-hmm. And so they have the expectation that because they're paying this, that you are available for them all the time. And not that somebody buying, a less than $1 million house is not spending a ton of money, because for everybody, normally buying a house is the largest investment of their lifetime. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it depends on the clientele. And also there's a lot of people moving to Charlotte from other countries where like things just are handled completely different in their country, and trying to make them understand, and work with them of like how we do it here can be a big challenge.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of punches thrown. I get that. And I manage people too, but I love my people. I'm not saying anything bad about my people. I love my people. But if there is one thing that you could change that would make your job easier or make it a little easier with your customers, what would that be?
With customers directly? I think, truly having a better understanding of our industry, and the misconception of kind of what I was alluding to earlier, that like, builders are just out there to make all this money and walk away. And, there's not a successful residential construction builder in the market who feels that way. I mean, there's just not, right? Like, the only way you're going to be successful in this is by truly caring about the person and trying to give them the best value for their money. That's how you're going to sustain long term. But, I think that would probably overall, I would say that would probably be one of the biggest challenges in that part.
Agreed. It's not transactional. It can't be transactional. If you make it transactional, you've lost from the get-go.
Right.
I think communication is, if you boil it down to anything, it's a communication issue or error. So just being very, very level set and very, getting ahead of problems and explaining like how we work. You're right. I've run into tons of folks and great people that are project managers in their career. Project manager is not necessarily transferable. Right. It's not. So I can appreciate their point of view and how they think things should work. I love people are like, this is how it should work. I'm like, well, I appreciate your point of view. However, that's not how it works. So it's just kind of level setting expectations really and communicating effectively.
Same with, engineers. You deal with a lot of engineers.
We love engineers.
Yeah.
But
I think once you learn how engineers' mind works in the sense that they're, very analytical of things, like you got to try to tailor your communication to that. But, there's 1,000 different kinds of engineers out there. And so, different varieties. And so it's like sometimes people have that misconception that this is how they might be a civil engineer and this is how things happen for them. It's completely different in the residential world. So
correct.
And now kind of moving away from, I guess, the customer side and getting back into the personal side of you guys.
Yeah.
Is there anything logistically that, when it comes to residential construction, how anything is regulated or permitted or financed that you would change to make your job easier?
Consistency would probably be the biggest thing. I mean, consistency throughout municipalities, both on permitting and inspections. Like if you have a accurate expectation and one that you can, kind of manage to, that helps tremendously across the board. You guys had somebody on your podcast talking about land development where he went to Japan, I think.
Chad Lloyd.
Yeah. And he was saying how they kind of plan more nationally. And so they have better expectations, and that's how they're being able to more efficiently do it. Here you drive 3 miles and you have completely different expectations.
They were more a little bit more proactive.
Right.
Things like that. We've realized and talked about in other episodes that Charlotte is really pre-active, or not pre-post, but what? They're not pre-active. They think about it afterwards. Whatever the term is.
Reactive.
That's what I meant. I was thinking of it and it wouldn't come through. There you go, reactive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that really is it. And, I think if you have consistency across the board, it makes everybody's life much easier.
Agreed. It depends on who you talk to. In most permanent offices, you might get a different answer, which can be very frustrating and something we work through. I know services and commercial has on the Roby side, but from my point of view, we don't have a lot of bank loan clients. But that is where I've had my most pain in the past couple of years is through bank loans and banks not paying either on time or their parameters are very different. So the builder ends up being and taking a lot of the cost for, 60, 90, 120 days before that they're reimbursed from a bank can be really tough. Roby can handle it sometimes, but definitely smaller GCs. So that's a tough way to go into business real fast.
Definitely. And so for someone like myself, someone in their early mid 20s, if they came up and they asked you today, well, I want to own a home someday. What do I need to do? And what is something that I need to understand that I probably don't know yet? What would you say to them?
I'd say start early and start small. I think we live in a world that everybody thinks that they got to have the newest and biggest and best version of everything. And, I think if you start small, buy your first home, something that you can afford and that, you're not going to burden yourself on a, budget basis, and it maybe needs a little bit of work or some landscaping or something like that to spruce it up, and start there and then work to where you want to be. But I think starting early and start small would be my biggest piece of advice on that.
Great comparisons, thief of joy, right? Yeah. So we grew, lots of folks are young enough to probably grew up in the HGTV level of remodeling, which is completely a fallacy. That whole build and all the cost, all of that is very much fictitious, television. But I agree with you. Start small. Ask lots of questions. Just ask questions. And the thing that folks don't understand is once you actually own a home, that is the most expensive repair constantly that you have to, the maintenance of your home, of being on top of it, making sure your wood on the exterior of your house is painted. That'll protect your home for wood rot. Like certain things like that, most folks don't know. So watch, Old House or what are those old channels on YouTube?
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah. But just asking lots of questions, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
So to circle back, the whole point of us being here, just to recap, a lot of the cost that goes towards a house that makes it a little bit not unaffordable, but just that same basis is the trades. We need more people in the trades. Mm-hmm. That's number one. We've talked about that twice now, today and our last episode. We need more people in the trades. And then the permitting and inspections, it takes up time, and time is money. Mm-hmm. So, we've talked about it in other episodes. Go see your city council people, talk to your legislators. We've got to get in and get some new laws or regulations changed so we can get these done a little quicker. Then it'll help with the affordability. Just a lot of that, a lot of things that doesn't even come to strictly material or actually building of the home. It's all the pre-stuff that is the cost. So become knowledgeable of it, spread the word, try to help change it. We gave you some options today and stick to it. And eventually you'll own a home.
Absolutely. Well, thank y'all so much for coming on this afternoon. That was an awesome episode. I know I learned quite a bit, and it's really cool to be able to see like the whole story of this coming together. I feel like we referred to quite a few prior episodes in that because we're really starting to put it together. Could say we're starting to construct this podcast. Huh?
All right. The jokes are out. We're done.
Well, tune in next time, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Framing the Issue podcast. And go take a listen on whatever platform you listen on, whether it be YouTube or Spotify, or go check out our new website, framingtheissue.com, which has all of our episodes.
We have Instagram and TikTok and Facebook now, so go check that out too.
I guess you could say we're becoming influencers. But on any of those platforms, go check us out. And we're excited for you to catch us in the next one. Y'all have a good one. Thank you guys.
Thank you.